Everyone assumes that the moment you land a high-paying job, you chase the next one. You negotiate hard. You push for every raise. You stack income as fast as the market will allow. It's more security, more options, and proof, undeniable proof, that you're winning. But I'm going to argue that for about 60% of you, relentlessly chasing a higher salary is actually the fastest way to destroy your financial life. Not slow it down. Not complicate it. Destroy it. It sounds ridiculous, I know. Why would any intelligent person look at more money and say no? Why would someone deliberately stop climbing? Why would a person who understands personal finance, who watches videos exactly like this one, ever choose to leave income on the table? Because of what researchers and behavioral economists call the income fulfillment trap. And this isn't just a motivational talking point dressed up in finance language. It is a documented, measurable pattern backed by compensation data, savings rate studies, and decades of wealth research. That explains why some of the highest earners in America are simultaneously some of the most financially fragile people in the country. And more importantly, it explains why a growing number of intelligent, high-functioning professionals are quietly, deliberately, and strategically choosing to stop chasing the number. Today we're going to look at exactly why they're doing it, what the data behind this decision actually says, and the specific framework you can use to figure out whether chasing a higher salary is building your future or quietly burning it down. If you're finding this valuable, make sure you subscribe to Begin Success. We break down the money rules, career traps, and financial systems that most people never get taught. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. To understand why intelligent people are walking away from higher salaries, you first need to understand a concept that was introduced not in a boardroom, not in a finance textbook, but in a satirical book published in 1969. A Canadian educator named Dr. Lawrence J. Peter, alongside writer Raymond Hull, published a book called The Peter Principle. The premise was simple, and at the time, most people read it as a joke. The core observation was this: in any organization, employees tend to rise to their level of incompetence. Read that again. People get promoted because they are good at the job they currently have, not because they will be good at the job they are being promoted into. And they keep getting promoted again and again until they finally land in a role where they are no longer competent. And there they stay, stuck, overwhelmed, managing a team when what they were built to do was build the product. Peter and Hull wrote it as organizational satire. They expected it to generate laughs at corporate culture, not careers in academic research. What they did not expect was for the business and economics world to start testing the idea with real data and finding out it was not satire at all. It was a description of reality. What started as a wry commentary on bureaucracy quietly transformed over the following decades into one of the most studied phenomena in labor economics. Researchers began examining large-scale workforce data, tracking promotion decisions, performance scores, and output across hundreds of companies and thousands of employees. And what they found was not comforting. The pattern held, over and over again, across industries, across income levels, across job functions. The people being promoted were consistently the top performers in their current roles, and a significant portion of them, once promoted, became demonstrably worse at their jobs than the people who were never promoted at all. But here is where the income layer enters the picture, and why this matters specifically for your financial life, not just your career satisfaction. Because every time that promotion happens, the salary goes up, the title goes up, the lifestyle adjusts upward to match, and the person, now operating outside their zone of genius, begins making decisions, financial and professional, from a place of quiet, chronic stress they rarely admit to anyone. What began as Peter's punchline became the financial trap that is silently reshaping the wealth trajectories of high earners across the country. And the data is about to get very uncomfortable. Let me make this concrete. Because the Peter Principle is one of those concepts that sounds abstract until you see it, and the moment you see it, you recognize it everywhere. Meet Daniel. Daniel is a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company. He is exceptional at what he does. His code is clean, his solutions are elegant, and when a problem hits the team that nobody else can untangle, Daniel is the person everyone turns to. His manager knows it. Leadership knows it. And after 3 consecutive years of standout performance reviews, the company decides to reward him the way organizations always reward their best people. They promote him to engineering manager. His salary jumps from $95,000 to $130,000. His title changes. His LinkedIn gets updated. And on the surface, everything looks like a win. But here is what nobody talked about in that promotion conversation. The skills that made Daniel extraordinary as an engineer, deep focus, solitary problem solving, the ability to spend 6 uninterrupted hours debugging a single system, are almost perfectly misaligned with the skills required to be an effective manager. Managing people requires constant context switching. It requires conflict resolution, performance coaching, one-on-one meetings, budget conversations, and the ability to get results through people rather than through code. Daniel does not have those skills. Not yet. Possibly not ever, because some people are simply not wired for them, and no salary increase changes that neurological reality. Within 8 months, Daniel's team is underperforming. Deadlines are slipping. 2 strong engineers on his team have quietly started looking for other jobs because the feedback they need is not coming. And Daniel, the person who used to go home energized after cracking a hard problem, is now going home drained, anxious, and increasingly unsure whether he is cut out for any of this. Here's the part that stings. The company did not lose a bad engineer. They lost their best one. They took the person operating at the peak of their capabilities and moved them to a role where those capabilities became irrelevant. And in exchange, they handed Daniel a $35,000 raise and a creeping lifestyle that now requires every dollar of it. He cannot afford to go back, financially or professionally. So he stays, stuck at his level of incompetence, managing a team that deserves better, doing work that drains him, with a salary that feels like a trap disguised as a reward. That is not a promotion story. That is the Peter Principle in real time. And Daniel is not the exception. Now, you might think Daniel's story is anecdotal. A single person, a single company, a single bad promotion decision. Maybe his organization just made a hiring mistake. Maybe Daniel was never that good to begin with. That is a fair objection. So let's talk about what the data actually says. In 2019, researchers at the MIT Sloan School of Management published a study that examined the promotion decisions and subsequent performance records of over 53,000 workers across 214 companies. This was not a survey. This was not self-reported data. These were actual performance scores, tracked before and after promotion, across real organizations operating in the real economy. The findings were striking. The single strongest predictor of who got promoted to a management role was individual sales or technical performance in their prior role. In other words, companies were overwhelmingly promoting their best individual contributors, exactly what you would expect and exactly what common sense would suggest you should do. But here is where the data turns uncomfortable. The researchers found a direct negative correlation between pre-promotion individual performance and post-promotion managerial effectiveness. The better someone was at their individual role, the worse they tended to perform as a manager once promoted into one. Read that again. The best individual performers became the worst managers. Not occasionally, not in isolated cases. As a statistically significant, repeatable pattern across 53,000 workers and more than 200 companies. The study concluded that organizations were systematically making promotion decisions based on the wrong criteria, rewarding the skills that made someone excellent at their current job, while completely ignoring whether those skills had any relevance to the job they were being promoted into. And the financial consequences of this pattern compound in ways most people never fully calculate. Because when the wrong person gets promoted, they earn a higher salary, which restructures their financial life upward. Their spending adjusts. Their fixed costs rise. Their savings rate frequently drops, because the raise feels like permanent security rather than a temporary window to build wealth. And when the stress of performing outside their zone of genius begins to affect their judgment, their health, and their relationships, the cost never shows up on a balance sheet. A separate working paper from researchers affiliated with Harvard Business School reinforced this finding, noting that firms with the highest rates of performance-based promotions also reported the highest rates of voluntary resignation among their remaining top performers. The people who watched the pattern and quietly decided they wanted no part of it. The data is not subtle. The system is broken by design. So if the data is this clear, why does the pattern keep repeating? Why do organizations keep promoting the wrong people? And why do intelligent, self-aware professionals keep accepting promotions that statistically work against them? Because most people believe that exceptional performance is a permanent personal trait. That if you are exceptional at one thing, you will find a way to be exceptional at the next thing. That talent is transferable. That drive fills the gaps that skill hasn't covered yet. But there is a statistical concept that dismantles that belief entirely. And once you understand it, Daniel's story stops feeling like a personal failure and starts feeling like a mathematical inevitability. It is called regression to the mean. Here is what it means in plain language. In any performance distribution, extreme results, whether exceptionally good or exceptionally bad, tend to move back toward the average over time. The person who shoots a perfect round of golf today is unlikely to repeat it tomorrow. The student who scores at the top of their class on one exam will very likely score closer to the class average on the next, not because they got worse, but because extreme performance in any given period contains a component of genuine skill and a component of conditions, timing, environment, task alignment, that cannot be perfectly replicated. Now apply that to the workplace. The engineer, the salesperson, the analyst who performed at the very top of their peer group did so in a role that was specifically aligned with their strongest capabilities. Their peak performance was real, but it was also a product of that specific fit. The moment they are moved into a new role, with different requirements and different skill demands, the conditions that produced the peak performance no longer exist. Regression to the mean predicts, with mathematical confidence, that their performance in the new role will drift toward average, not because they are suddenly less intelligent or less motivated, but because the fit that produced the exceptional output is gone. And here is the cruel irony that makes this more than just a career problem. The higher the salary attached to the new role, the more financially committed the person becomes to staying in it. Lifestyle expands to absorb the income. Fixed costs rise. The runway to walk away gets shorter with every pay cycle. So what began as a statistical regression becomes a financial lock-in. The promotion that was supposed to reward exceptional performance ends up trapping it. This is not a story about individual weakness. It is a story about a system that consistently mistakes task-specific excellence for universal capability. And the math was never on your side. I want you to do something for me right now. Delete the image of the career ladder from your mind. That vertical structure of rungs, each one higher than the last, each one representing a title upgrade and a salary increase, climbing indefinitely toward the top. Every career conversation you have ever had has been built around that image. Every performance review, every LinkedIn update, every dinner table conversation about ambition has assumed that ladder is the correct model. It is not. And that image is quietly costing people their financial lives. Replace it with this. Picture a graph. The horizontal axis is time, your career progression from entry level forward. The vertical axis is competence, your actual effectiveness in the role you are currently performing. Now plot your career on that graph. In the early years, the line climbs. You are learning, adapting, building genuine skill. Your competence rises steadily. Then something happens. You hit what I call your zone of genius. This is the point on the graph where your natural abilities, your accumulated experience, and the specific demands of your role achieve perfect alignment. Your output is exceptional. Your confidence is grounded. You are not just performing. You are operating at the peak of what you are capable of producing. This is precisely the moment your organization decides to promote you. And the moment that promotion takes effect, watch what happens to the line on the graph. It drops sharply because the new role does not sit inside your zone of genius. It sits in what I call the Peter zone. The region of the graph where the title is higher, the salary is higher, and the competence is lower. Where the skills that built the ascent become largely irrelevant, and the skills required to succeed are ones you have never been asked to develop. Here is the cruel irony that the latter metaphor completely obscures. On the ladder, every rung looks like progress. On the competence graph, the promotion is visible for exactly what it is, a step sideways off the curve you were built for, into a valley you were never equipped to climb out of. And while your competence drops inside the Peter zone, your financial obligations are climbing in the opposite direction. The salary increase restructures your life upward. Your fixed costs expand. Your savings rate compresses. You are now financially dependent on a role that is actively draining you. The ladder told you that up is always better. The graph tells you the truth, that your most powerful position is the one where your competence peaks, not the one where your title does. So the question every intelligent person in this situation eventually arrives at is this: how do you actually say no to a promotion without torching your reputation, your relationships with leadership, and your future opportunities inside the organization? Because the fear is real. Saying no to a promotion feels like career suicide. It feels like signaling that you are not ambitious, not driven, not leadership material. It feels like the kind of decision that gets you quietly deprioritized the next time a meaningful opportunity surfaces. But that fear is based on how you say no, not on the act of saying no itself. Here is the framework. 3 components, used together, in this exact sequence. First, anchor to impact, not comfort. The moment you frame your decision around what you do not want, you sound like someone protecting their comfort zone. The moment you frame it around where you create the most value, you sound like someone with strategic self-awareness. Those are 2 completely different professional signals. So when the conversation happens, your first move is this. You say, I've thought seriously about this, and I want to be honest with you about where I believe I create the most measurable impact for this team. That one sentence repositions the entire conversation. You are not declining a promotion. You are advocating for optimal resource allocation. Second, quantify your current value explicitly. Do not let the conversation remain abstract. Name specific results, specific projects, specific outcomes that your current role produced. Then say, I want to make sure we're not moving me out of the role where I'm generating that kind of output before we've identified who can sustain it. This reframes your refusal as organizational stewardship. You are not protecting yourself. You are protecting the team's results. Third, propose an alternative that keeps you visible. Declining a promotion does not mean declining influence. Propose a senior individual contributor track, a mentorship role, a specialized leadership function that does not require you to leave your zone of genius. Say, I'd love to explore what a principal or senior specialist path looks like here, a way I can contribute at a higher level without stepping away from the work where I'm most effective. Most organizations have this path. Very few employees think to ask for it. Used together, these 3 moves accomplish something remarkable. They allow you to protect your position on the competence curve, maintain your financial stability, and signal to leadership that your decision came from strategic clarity, not from fear. Saying no, delivered this way, is not a career limitation. It is a power move. Here is what nobody tells you about the people who quietly refuse to leave their zone of genius. They are not the ones who got left behind. They are not the cautious ones, the unambitious ones, the people who ran out of drive halfway up the ladder. They are frequently the most financially secure, the most professionally respected, and the most personally satisfied people in the entire organization. And the climbers, the ones who chased every title, accepted every promotion, restructured their lives around every salary increase. Many of them are sitting inside the Peter zone right now, performing below their own standard, spending every dollar of a salary that feels increasingly like a leash, unable to walk away because the lifestyle that salary funds has become non-negotiable. That is not winning. That is a very expensive trap with the impressive title on the door. The research is consistent on this point. Studies examining long-term career satisfaction and net worth accumulation consistently find that professionals who optimize for role fit and sustained peak performance, rather than title progression, accumulate significantly more wealth over a 20-year period than those who optimize for salary alone. The reason is straightforward. A person operating inside their zone of genius produces exceptional results reliably. Exceptional results generate leverage, the kind that commands consulting fees, equity conversations, and opportunities that never appear on a job board. Meanwhile, the person trapped in the Peter zone is too overwhelmed to see those opportunities and too financially committed to their current salary to pursue them even when they do. The smartest person in the room is not the one with the most impressive title. It is the person who identified exactly where they were most effective, most energized, and most irreplaceable, and had the discipline and the self-awareness to stay there, build there, and compound there. Because here is the truth that the career ladder has been hiding from you your entire professional life. The goal was never the next rung. The goal was always impact, fulfillment, financial freedom that does not depend on a title you are quietly struggling to justify. Intelligent people refuse to chase high salaries not because they do not understand money. They refuse because they understand it better than anyone else in the room. They know that the highest paying role and the most financially optimal role are frequently not the same thing. And they have done the math. Now you have too. If this video gave you a framework you can use, subscribe to begin success. Because this is exactly the kind of conversation we have here every single week.